Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, this is going to be some material that's more for some of our national viewers rather than just those in the state of Washington. And I do thank all of you who have subscribed to the channel over the last few months. The solvent trap and ATF fiasco certainly got some of you tuned into this channel. So thanks a million for joining us. But listen, this is a really important thing that I want to get all of you around the United States to start understanding, which is that there appears to be this trend politically where more radical ideas are tried out here on the West Coast before they are implemented moving eastward. And for that reason, I think it's important that I give you a few examples about why everyone around the country should pay attention to Washington gun laws. Okay, before we get rolling, you guys know the drill. If you like this video, click that like button. If you want to stay up to date on issues related to your Second Amendment rights, not only on a statewide level, but on a nationwide level, click that subscribe button. Click the little bell logo if you want to be notified when we post new videos. And most importantly, let's keep the comments and discussions coming. That's how we're making sure that we're getting our videos out to more lawful and responsible gun owners like yourself. Okay, as I mentioned at the outset of this video, it's my belief that some of the more radical, progressive ideas are oftentimes tried out here on the West Coast before being implemented elsewhere in the nation. And when we take a look at what's happening on the federal level with many types of gun control legislation, much of it mirrors what we have already done in Washington or what we are currently trying to do. In fact, in some ways, they're very hauntingly similar because they are using exact language. It's almost as if in some instances, the people who wrote the federal legislation just went to the Washington State Legislative website and cut and pasted directly from our statutes into proposed federal legislation. I'm going to give you guys 3 examples to kind of help you understand why geeking out on Washington gun law may give you a sneak peek at what type of gun grabbing measures are coming to a jurisdiction near you. First of all, I want you to we're going to talk about how Washington deals with universal background checks or closing the gun show loophole. Secondly, we're going to talk about Washington's red flag laws. And finally, we're going to talk about the ATF's recent proposal about how to deal with 80% lowers, untraceable firearms, homemade firearms. We'll put a link for a video we just did down below about that. But we're going to compare what the ATF and the federal government is trying to do with what the Washington State Legislature already did to its citizens. Now let's start with universal background checks. Now I know that is a politically hot issue in many parts of the country, and certainly there are many on the political left who still scream for universal background checks. Well, my friends, that is old hat for us here in Washington State. You see, because back in 2014 through Initiative 594, the citizens of Washington passed a universal background check bill, which was really basically sold as closing the gun show loophole. Under Washington law, which is now codified in RCW 9.41.113, all private sales between individuals must be conducted through a licensed FFL, and a background check must be conducted on any private purchaser. The only exceptions being to some family relationships, so long as the firearm is being transferred for purpose of a gift. But beyond that, no, when you're making a private sale in Washington to somebody else, or even a transfer to somebody who's not within that immediate family relationship, that will be conducted via an FFL. Yes, you will have to wait under Washington's waiting periods, and a background check will be conducted before the firearm can actually be transferred to the transferee. Next, let's talk about national red flag laws. Now, for those of you who are not in jurisdictions in which red flag laws exist, in Washington State, we call them extreme risk protection orders. Yeah, we have a more euphemistic term for it. But essentially, in Washington State, either a law enforcement officer or a family member can file a petition with the court that declares that the respondent is a danger to himself or others and that they have access to firearms. If the court finds by preponderance of evidence ex parte, that's right, without the other side getting a chance to respond, they will issue a temporary order that will last usually 14 days. In many instances, it lasts longer until a permanent hearing is conducted. Of course, during the time that the temporary order is in effect, all firearms will be seized and or surrendered by the respondent until and at such time that the order is resolved. The final hearing involves a bunch of paperwork because that's right, everybody gets to submit their own evidence via declarations and affidavits. It is kind of hard to cross-examine a piece of paper, and if the court finds by preponderance of evidence that the individual is in fact a threat to themselves or other and has reasonable access to firearms, they will be ordered to forfeit their firearms for 1 year. That's how red flag laws work. Now, we know that there has been some push to have this into military courts through recent military spending. And we also know that both the Biden administration, really led by Representative Lucy McBath, Democrat out of Georgia, has proposed for federal red flag laws. But hey, if you want to see the model and how it works, that's okay, because again, that's old hat for us here in Washington State. You see, because back in 2017, we implemented RCW 7.94, which is our Extreme Risk Protection Order statutory scheme. We call them ERPOs here in the state of Washington. But if you want to see what the federal government is doing, what the plans in your jurisdiction are for red flag hearings, look no further than RCW 7.94. That is the model by which all other states are going to be using as a way to implement this law. And finally, let's talk about untraceable firearms, because for those of you who have been watching the channel, we recently did a video about how the ATF is about to just go completely nuts on these things. And one of the things in the proposed rulemaking is a newly expanded definition of a firearm, and more importantly, a much more expanded definition of frame or receiver. Why? Well, it is the ATF's desire to bring all untraceable firearms, 80% lowers and things such as that, into purview of the Gun Control Act to make sure that all of them are serialized so that, yes, your federal government can keep track of all of them. Now, that may seem like a rather shocking development for many of you around the country, but look no further than the state of Washington, because just this past legislative session, our state legislature passed House Bill 1705. Now, House Bill 1705 did many things, but two of the first things it did was it went to our definitional section in our Firearms Act 941, which is specifically 941.010, and guess what? It redefined firearm and it redefined frame and receiver. And guess what the federal legislation proposes to do? Shockingly, it proposes to redefine firearm and redefine frame and receiver. And even more shockingly, the language that they are using, well, it comes directly out of House Bill 1705. But wait, there's more, because one of the other things that House Bill 1705 did was now render an entire class of firearms, untraceable firearms, firearms that were manufactured with 80% lowers that did not have serial numbers, and renders them unlawful to possess on a date certain unless they are serialized. And then, of course, the statute specifically lays out how and who and where it is to be serialized, and does so in a manner that will make it virtually impossible for many people to bring these firearms into compliance with the law. Well, as we know, the ATF is doing exactly the same thing. And where do they get this idea, and where do they get the language? Well, it comes directly from House Bill 1705 out here in Washington State. By expanding the scope of the definition of frame or receiver, the ATF will bring in far more components under the definition of firearms, thus requiring serialization on all of them, bringing more under federal gun control. So like I say, if you want to find out what's coming your way, look no further than Washington State. Now, you sit there and go, well, God, why would Washington State be on such a cutting edge? Well, you need to understand a little something about how our state is run or not run. Our governor is not the most intelligent individual in the world, and candidly, all he ever tries to do is emulate the governors of California and Oregon, typically in that order. Now, our Attorney General, on the other hand, is a very sharp dude. However, he has very nefarious intent, especially when it comes to your ability to defend yourself. Well, why do I say that about our Attorney General? Well, let's remember that Attorney General Bob Ferguson of the great state of Washington was the one who proposed Senate Bill 5078, which ultimately was passed into law and is now going to provide Washington with its first ever magazine restriction. Let us also remember that this is the same Attorney General who, a couple of years ago, wrote an amicus brief in favor of the state of California's magazine ban at a time when Washington did not have a similar ban in place. So yes, my friends around the country, if you want to know where Attorney General Merrick Garland gets many of his ideas, well, I think he picks up the phone and talks to our Attorney General Bob Ferguson. So for all those reasons, and for all of you out there that are concerned that your Second Amendment rights are under siege, which they are, pay careful attention to what happens out here in Washington. It may be coming your way sometime soon. Listen, you may have more questions about Washington gun laws or anything else related to your Second Amendment rights, and if you do, don't ever hesitate to contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or of course you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now let's remember, part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Hey everyone, thanks for watching Washington Gun Law TV. I just wanted to remind all of you that we are going live again Monday, April 4th at 7 p.m. right here on YouTube. Once again, that is Monday, April 4th, 7 p.m. right here on YouTube. I'm sure we will have lots to talk about, not only on the statewide, but on the nationwide level. We'll probably have all sorts of political things that we can get into as well. So join us live right here on YouTube, Monday, April 4th, 7 p.m. That's 7 p.m. Pacific time. In the meantime, stay safe.